You've said repeatedly today that you were not biased, but Bob Mueller kicked you off his team as a consequence of your bias, didn't he?
Sir, I wouldn't agree with that characterization. I think I answered earlier. My understanding was that, and again, there were no words spoken about this, but it was the potential appearance that he wanted to avoid as much as anything else.
So did Bob Mueller say, I'm not firing you from this team from your bias, I'm getting rid of you? So what is your basis for the belief that it's the appearance of your bias rather than your actual bias that resulted in Mueller removing you?
Because I think his experience both with me, my work, and the reputation of others about me and my work, that
so what
he knows that I am an individual who follows the facts where they lay.
So your testimony today that you were removed not for bias but for the appearance of bias is based on your perception of Robert Mueller's perception of you?
No, sir. I'm saying what I would think the logical case. If you want to know what his reasons were, you'd need to ask him.
Let me ask it simply, Mr. Strzok. Did Robert Mueller ever ask you if you were biased against Donald Trump?
He did not.
So he didn't ask you when he hired you?
No, that question is not typically a question that gets asked during hiring meetings in the U.S. government, to my experience.
One would seemingly think that if you were hiring someone to investigate something, you might ask. But certainly then, when you were removed, was it clear to you that Mr. Mueller was aware of these incendiary text messages?
Yes.
So he knew of the text messages, but never asked you whether you were biased or not?
That's correct.
Your girlfriend texted you on the 8th of August, Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right? Do you recall your reply?
I do recall my reply, and if I hadn't, it's been refreshing my recollection no less than 4 or 5 times today, sir. But yes, I do recall my reply.
And what was it?
I'm sure you have it. I don't want to misstate it, but essentially, no, no, he's not. We'll stop it.
Did Bob Mueller ever ask you about that text message?
He did not.
About a week later, on August 15th, you sent a text message regarding a meeting in Andy McCabe's office. Is that right?
I don't know the date. I do believe I know the text message that you're going to.
Did Bob Mueller ever ask you what happened in the meeting in Andrew McCabe's office?
There are many meetings that I attended in, not many, but
did
several meetings.
Did Bob Mueller ask you about any of them?
He did not.
Huh. Did Bob Mueller ask you what you meant by an insurance policy?
Director Mueller did not.
On the 26th of July, this is contemporaneous with the opening of the Trump-Russia investigation, your girlfriend texts you, Clinton just has to win now. And you reply a few days later, and damn, this feels momentous because this matters. The other one did too, but that was to ensure we didn't F something up. This matters because this matters. So super glad to be on this voyage with you. Did Bob Mueller ask you why this matters?
If you're asking why it mattered, it was
a
comparison between a case about...
I've seen you do this where you answer questions that are not asked, but that is not what I'm asking you. I want to know if Bob Mueller asked you about this text message.
Director Mueller did not ask me about any text message, Congressman.
Well, gosh, just days after Mueller is appointed, in 2 text messages, one on the 19th of May and one on the 22nd of May, you reference impeachment. Did Bob Mueller ask you why you were referencing impeachment?
Congressman, as I just stated, Director Mueller did not ask me about any text message.
Well, I find that very interesting, that Bob Mueller has to remove you as a consequence of bias. Now, you don't say it's bias. You say that based on your perception of Bob Mueller's perception of you, it couldn't possibly be your bias. It has to be the appearance of bias. But when we get into actually the manifestation of that bias through your words, Bob Mueller doesn't ask you about a single one of them. And so then I look at other people that Bob Mueller picked on his team, people like Lisa Page. I'm very curious to know whether or not he asked her about any of her incendiary text messages. But throughout the team, you've got people working for Bob Mueller who have active connections to Hillary Clinton. You know, Greg Anders donated to the Clinton campaign. Kyle Freeney donated to the Clinton campaign. Andrew Goldstein donated to the Clinton campaign. Elizabeth Prigolar donated to the Clinton campaign. James Quarles donated to the Clinton campaign. Jeannie Rhee represented Ben Rhodes during the Benghazi investigation. She represented the Clinton Foundation against Freedom of Information Act requests. Andrew Weissman, the number 2 for Mueller, attended Hillary Clinton's election night party. Aaron Zellaby represented Justin Cooper, who was the person who set up Hillary Clinton's private email server. And then there's you and Miss Page. And it's just really interesting to me that when you were so damaging to the investigation that you had to go, that Bob Mueller, the person who brought in all these people that had connections to the Hillary Clinton campaign, did not ask you about a single text message. And I tend to believe, Mr. Chairman, that it's because he did not want to know the answer and that there was bias and that your perception of Bob Mueller's perception of you is totally unreliable, and I yield back.
Mr. Strzok, you've taken great offense today at questions about your credibility, but for many of us, that's the real issue here, and I think it is for the American people. As we've been sitting here all day, I've been getting text messages from constituents back home, and they're very concerned about this. This whole thing has been described as shameful and a train wreck, and it feels that way to many of us. I'm playing cleanup here. Many of us will here at the end. Let me ask you a smattering of questions. Number one, here's what you and Ms. Page exchanged the night that Donald Trump secured the Republican nomination in late 2016. You wrote, or she wrote to you, holy blank, Cruz just dropped out of the race. It's going to be a Clinton-Trump race. Unbelievable. You responded, what? She writes back, you heard right, my friend. Now you said, now the pressure really starts to finish MYE, which we know now is the FBI code name for the Clinton email investigation. And she writes back and responds, it sure does. So here's our problem. You two are the most influential FBI personnel on the Clinton investigation, and within hours of Donald Trump securing the Republican nomination, you text to her, okay, now the pressure really begins. Now we really have to finish the Clinton investigation. And she agrees, and she says it sure does. Here's the question. Why did you have to finish it up so fast? What were you all referring to? Why? Was it to stop President Trump?
Not at all. She was not one of the two most influential people in the investigation. The purpose of that text was not at all having anything to do with candidate Trump or candidate Clinton. That had everything to do with Director Comey's sense and urgency to try and resolve the investigation as soon as we could to get the FBI and the investigation out of the presidential race.
Were you slow walking it prior to that time? Were you slow walking it prior to that time?
Absolutely not. But there was a constant sense of urgency, and I think everybody on the team, everybody in the senior executive management of the FBI understood that the closer and closer and the longer the investigation took, that we continued, thanks to the actions of some, including some of the candidates, to be inserted into as an issue in the presidential campaign.
Let me stop because this is my time. We're not supposed to associate this in any way with all of your many other volumes of text, all the disparaging things you said about Donald Trump as a candidate, and the fact that you said, we'll stop it. So those two things are not related in any way at all, right?
Congressman, I understand your concern, and those are your constituents. What I'm telling you under oath is that expression was what I just told you. It was a desire from the highest levels of the Bureau throughout the team to get us out of the process of the general election.
Okay, let me move on. Did you ever find evidence of collusion or conspiracy, as you've said today, between then candidate Trump and Russia?
Sir, I can't, based on the direction of the FBI, I cannot comment on ongoing investigations.
You said in your text of May 18th, 2017, you concluded, quote, there is no there there. What were you referring to?
Sir, I said part of my concern is there might not be a there. And as I mentioned earlier, I think is certainly at the beginning, as we looked at the allegations, there were a wide range of potential things that were going on. On one end, it was that there was nothing, that there was no illegal activity, there was absolutely no conspiracy to do anything, moving up to potentially individuals doing things that are illegally based on individual agendas, and on the very far end, some of the things that might be in the worst case, things which might lead to impeachment. But I was approaching that with a very open mind, not knowing where the facts lay or where they might lead, and some of that saying, hey, there is a reasonable chance, there is a reasonable, realistic set of things which might indicate there's nothing going on here.
Okay, look, you said several times today that every American has a political bias, but not every American has your level of responsibility, the duty, the extraordinary level of responsibility that you had on behalf of the American people. And our entire system of justice depends upon equal and impartial justice under the law. Don't you agree with that?
I absolutely agree on that.
Look, you've spoken in lofty terms today about ethics and honesty and integrity, and yet by every objective measure, the public record of your actions belie those virtues. And look, the Inspector General's report concluded that your conduct demonstrated, quote, extremely poor judgment and a gross lack of professionalism. Why should this committee, why should my constituents back home, why should the American people trust you as a credible witness?
Sir, I regret and I'm sorry for the way that those texts have cast my actions into question, and those of the FBI and the investigations. What I'm telling you and what I'd ask you to relay to constituents is to look at the facts. Set aside the text. Look at what the IG found. Look at the actions that I took, the actions that the team.
With all due respect, I'm out of time.
Sir,
Hold on. With all due respect, we cannot separate the texts from that question because the texts were written during the investigation, while you were in charge of these investigations, while you're the most responsible, important person in these investigations at many times, and we cannot separate your personal views and bias from the facts as they developed. That's our problem, and at the end of the day, that's what we're all still very concerned about, even after all these hours of hearings.
Sir, what I would tell you, sir, is look at the...
The time of the gentleman has expired. That was a statement, not a question.